What is up, guys? In today's video I'm going to be talking about the new Mythic ice wall item because I think you need to be using this in Zero Build if you haven't already. I think this item is very good, very high value, and very easy to use. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what you think of this new ice wall item. So this was added in yesterday's update, and you can find this just from general looting. Like, I believe it spawns as floor loot and potentially chest loot, and it definitely spawns in the new Deku supply drops that will spawn. So if you want this item and you don't have it, there's a guaranteed way for you to go and get it. Just look at your map, find the nearest Deku crate, and go for it. And what this does is it creates a wall of ice, as the name implies, but what's really good is that it has unlimited uses and only a 12-second cooldown, so you can use this a lot without ever really having to think about it. Like, bunkers are great, but you can only carry 4 of them in a single item slot, and that's if you were even able to find that many spawns of it, because at times it was a struggle. And also, every time you use one, it doesn't recharge, so you would have to think about it in a fight, like, okay, is this worth using a bunker here, or should I potentially try to like play with less cover and save the bunker? And that could get you into some situations where maybe you're being a bit too greedy with your bunkers, and then, you know, you end up losing in a situation where you probably should have just used it. Whereas with the ice wall, you can use it in every fight. Who cares? It's just going to recharge. You don't have to worry about conserving it or getting like the best use out of it. And then also, you don't have to worry about running out because there's no consequence for using it at all, since it's unlimited and the cooldown time is so low. I feel like it's also much easier to use than bunkers were. Like, I didn't have much of a problem using bunkers, but some people, you know, they have to throw it and then it ends up in a weird spot. Whereas like with this ice wall, you just, you know, you have it out, you hit your shoot button, and you have cover now. It's very good, and it's very easy to react to getting shot and then throw this wall out. Whereas like with the bunkers, that is one of the situations where you might have a hard time throwing it, as if you're kind of having to react to getting shot, you know? And this is kind of similar to how we went from like having shockwaves in chapter 3 to like easier to use rechargeable mobility items like the shockwave hammer and the katana, but now for cover. Like, when we have shockwaves as a mobility item, you have to think about in a fight, like, is it worth using it? Is it worth using it to just like travel around the map freely? And then you also have to worry about, you know, accumulating more, potentially looting to find it. Whereas with rechargeable mobility, you could push every fight using it, no problem. You could use it for traveling around the map more loosely because it recharged over time. And this cover item is the same thing, or this ice wall is the same thing, but as a cover item. You can use it all the time, no concern in the world, and that makes it very, very valuable. Like, it's easier to use than bunkers. It's infinite. You don't have to worry about finding multiple of it. And if you are just unlucky and aren't able to find it from your initial looting or from like eliminating other players, there's guaranteed spawns of it from the Deku drops, and that's huge. Like, I don't carry bunkers that much in pubs, but in competitive Zero Build, it was a struggle sometimes looting your entire spot and then not getting bunkers and just feeling like, all right, well, this is going to be a much harder game than it should be otherwise. Whereas this ice wall, guaranteed way to get it, which is very nice. There's also a lot of little tricks that you can do with this ice wall, like the ability to completely avoid fall damage. When you activate it, you kind of go into like somewhat of an animation, and you can do this while in the sky. So if you want to jump off of something or get knocked off of like Loot Island, let's say, you can just pull this out, hit the shoot button, and then you'll completely avoid that fall damage, which is very nice. I know a lot of players have been getting knocked off of Loot Island this season from players' rocket rams, but you can also just knock people off of high areas with this, because if they're standing near you when you activate it, it kind of like forces them away from you with a shockwave. Not like a shockwave effect, but like it forces them away from you. And so you can knock people off of Loot Island with this. If they're sitting on the house, you could just shockwave up, go into the ice wall animation, and then they'll knock off and potentially die to fall damage if they don't have an ice wall of their own. You can use it to completely counter the Deku smash. If somebody is using the Deku smash and you throw this out, it should stop it. I've had it happen where I just stopped the Deku smash with it, no problem. But I have had people commenting saying it doesn't work for them for whatever reason, and I don't know why that would be the case. But the only time I've tried to stop a Deku smash using the ice wall, it was successful. You can use it to break structures and force people out of hiding. So if you use this near a building or a rock or a bush, whatever it is, it'll break that stuff and it'll force the person out and potentially knock them back, kind of like what I was talking about before. This is really good when you have somebody ratting in a house, or like let's say you get tags on somebody, they go into a house, you can just shockwave near the house, use the ice thing, and then break into a way where they're not expecting and potentially, you know, force them into a spot where that they weren't initially prepared for. And you can also stack them. Legendaries pointed this out to me in a comment on my most recent video. But if you place an ice wall and then walk to the top of it and kind of do a 180 and then place another ice wall, you can stack them. You can only have 2 walls out at a time as an individual. So if you place a third, that first one will despawn and that's your base, so it'll just break it. But in team game modes, you probably could stack this a bit higher if you had multiple people in your team using the ice wall mythic item. But even as a solo, I feel like there are situations where stacking it might be beneficial to you. Like, let's say you get ahead of zone endgame and you know you just got to kind of turn back and hold the rest of the lobby. If you have the time to make this work and you have like the time to set it up, you can make, you know, a more elevated position and you are relatively like protected when you do have it stacked like this. I think this ice wall is incredibly good and I would highly recommend using it for Zero Build. I didn't use bunkers as much in the past for public matches, although they've always been good. It just didn't really, I didn't really feel like worrying about carrying them and finding them all the time. And then like, you know, that kind of situation I talked about earlier on in the video where like, is this worth using, or like, is this fight worth using a bunker on? In comp, they were obviously huge and very important, but I just didn't carry them as much in pubs, and a lot of people didn't carry them as much in pubs, and that made it to where not carrying them wasn't that big of a deal because you could usually end fights rather quickly if you had mobility. But with this ice wall being something that's very easy to get and spammable, I've noticed that a lot more of my end games have a lot of people using this item. So if everybody else in the lobby is using it and you aren't using it, I feel like that lack of cover is going to affect you much more than kind of in the past where people weren't using the cover items. Like I said, bunkers were always good in pubs, but typically there weren't that many people using them. So like if it did happen, you could maybe just shockwave at that person, take their bunker, and now you're chilling. Whereas with this ice wall, I just feel like my games have played so differently since it came out in game that if you don't have one, it's going to be much harder to close that game out and win. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend using this. It's very good. Not only is it going to, you know, help you create cover in fights where you wouldn't have it, it's going to help you deal with getting caught off guard because it's very easy to use in that situation, but also it's going to be crucial in game, at least from the games that I've played so far since this item has been added. Since it came out, what I've been using is just shotgun AR. I think you can go either way here. I think the twin mag AR is just far and away the best AR, but your choice of shotgun, you can really use whatever. Obviously the exotic Maven is going to be the best, but I even use sharp tooth twin mag AR sometimes and it's just fine. And then I've been using heals, shockwaves, and then this ice wall item. I was using kind of this similar setup, but with EMPs instead of the ice wall. But with how the game plays out now, I think it's better to have the ice wall than the EMPs. And I think that's very good because I think the more the game became shockwave EMP spam, I think the less fun the game was going to be. And hopefully with this being an item in the game, less people use EMPs. And so you can use this more kind of, not really standard, but I think it's a more fun playstyle, this loadout, than the EMP spam. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. The item use itself is incredibly simple. Like I said, you just hit the shoot button and then you have cover. Do with that what you want. And the more you use this in fights, I feel like the higher chances you have to win that fight. If you guys found this helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.